It is very important that we obey God and do what we are told. If God tells you to kill someone, you'd better do it. Because once you believe something and are taught to believe something that makes no sense whatsoever, you're just open to nonsense.
Sorry, Miss Church. I was the
Roman Empire! Roman
yeah.
Empire! Roman Empire!
Busted.
I would totally have done what Lot's wife did.
Yay, Sodom and Gomorrah, baby.
Before the whole salt thing.
It's no longer big enough for Abram's flocks and Lot's flocks.
Say that 5 times fast. So fear, 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 fear. And you better tell those little kids over and over, obey, 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 is that the Bible notoriously considers bats to be birds. The only fire that was to be used in the holy place sounds like, if only they knew God's truth, but clearly they aren't chosen. Clearly they aren't part of God's elect. Welcome to another conversation with the Apostate Sisters. I'm Patty, and I make this channel with my sister Nancy. We grew up in a doomsday cult called the Worldwide Church of God. Today we're revisiting our cult literature series and taking a look at the YES lessons, or Youth Bible Lessons, that were used to indoctrinate us as kids. We're going to take a look at 3 different years of the Youth Bible Lessons created by imperial schools under the Worldwide Church of God. We're looking at a lesson for 4th graders, 2nd graders, and 9th graders. These lessons were meant to teach biblical truth through puzzles, diagrams, and scripture memorization. But beneath the gold-plated cherubim and tabernacle curtain lies something much more insidious. It conditioned young minds to obey without question and to internalize food, purity, and worship laws as defining their identity. The booklets make wild assumptions and connect with Bible scriptures that were cherry-picked to support everything Armstrong said. We were taught to fear the consequences of mistakes, even if our mistake was just not understanding. It messed us up, and if you were a WCG kid in the 80s, you might remember these. And if you weren't a WCG kid, you can probably find some threads that show you how you were controlled by your religion, too. Stick with us as we dive into our traumatizing cult past. Let's get started. Help the sisters keep this healing content coming. Like, subscribe, and comment. Drop some dollars, or support us by becoming a channel member or patron for extra perks. Well, hi, Nancy. How you doing?
Hey, Pats. Another cult propaganda one. This time we're going back to our childhood. Yay, with the YES lessons.
And you should know I have a very special one that I know you'll just absolutely love the title of today, because this one is called Lessons in Obedience.
This is going to frustrate me to no end, isn't it?
I know. I actually think one time you said there's no cringier word than the word obedience. So I was like, yes, let's do it. We'll just traumatize ourselves with this like exposure therapy. Well, I guess that's untraumatizing ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, obedience. When you're taught that as a kid, man, that's a surefire way to ensure you don't have critical thinking as you get older, huh?
Exactly. Well, and I think it'll probably be very good for us to go back to this, because we're going to be exposing the ways that they use these lessons to indoctrinate us and to make us afraid and control us from an early age.
Right. Yes.
Mm.
Yeah. And we're going to pinpoint a few things I think that we can relate to in our adult lives here that maybe something got in from childhood. I'm excited to dissect this. So thanks for picking it. Let's dive in.
You should have the issue of the Youth Bible Lessons in front of you. I see now that the title on the front is Youth Bible Lessons, but I know that we called them YES lessons. So I'll be curious to hear what the other culties out there watching this called it when they were growing up.
I remember YES and YOU. What was the difference? YOU stood for Youth Opportunities United, correct? And YES was like Youth Education Systems, was it?
No, Youth Educational Services.
Okay.
Yeah. So The YES lessons were available for kids from kindergarten through ninth grade. And then
Okay.
starting before that, I think around age 13 is when kids could enter the youth group, which was YOU at the time. So I think I only did up through the maybe sixth grade of the YES lessons before either it all fell apart or I just quit doing them. I'm not entirely sure because I know any of them I've looked at after that point, I don't remember.
Good job,
So,
Rebel.
well, okay, so I was looking at this fourth grade one because I the lessons in obedience that I have today for us was from the fourth grade. It's one of them just from the middle of that year of
Mm-hmm.
lessons. I was looking at it and like all the little puzzles and things they have. I was like, oh, I would have absolutely eaten this shit up. Like I loved filling out puzzles and forms and things like
Oh,
that.
and there was a bunch of coloring too, wasn't there? I remember a lot of coloring, and then they had different like Bible stories in it, and then something like maybe some Bible passages towards the end, if I'm
Yep.
not mistaken. I don't know. I haven't looked at this since childhood, so I'm pretty stoked. Let's,
Yeah.
I mean, nervous, but let's take a look. Let's take a look.
Even the weird brown color of the cover just made me shudder when I saw it. So, yes, this series figured in very large for me as a child. And because, busy bookwork was a thing that I was good at as a kid, that sure made me feel good that I could like fill all these out and I could memorize the scripture from the back. But you're not wrong about the coloring, because for sure, if you look more toward the kindergarten one, it's more coloring. And then as you get closer
Mm.
to the ninth grade one, it's, smaller text and not as much coloring, if any.
So
So,
YES went through what grade?
well, I don't know exactly. The lessons went through ninth grade,
Okay.
but I'm pretty sure by the time I was 13 in the seventh grade was when I joined YOU, and I was officially one of the cool kids in the youth group.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were a cool kid in a Christian youth group. Congratulations, Pets.
Yeah, except I wasn't the cool kid. I never felt like the cool kid, even when I was finally in the club. I still always felt like the weirdo.
Man, we have gone to church with some cunts, haven't we? I just remember a lot of the girls our age were just nasty. Just thought very highly of themselves, and everyone else did not exist.
Like that set of twins in our church.
I re They came to mind. They came to mind. Absolutely.
They were they were definitely the popular people that we were not. That's okay. I'm fine with that.
The being a popular kid in a doomsday cult. Congratulations.
I know it's kind of sad and toxic. Yikes. Okay. Well, do you have it pulled up? Can you see the cover? What's your
Yes,
first
unfortunate.
reaction?
Oh my God, I see the cover and I do remember it, of course. Cringe.
So
And
cringe.
the title popping up here, just lessons in obedience. Ugh. Okay, never mind. I'm not looking forward to this. Nope, nope.
So I think what we're
Oh,
looking at on this cover is Moses polishing a goblet. Is it Moses? I'm not even entirely sure. But it's kind of a peaceful scene, and then the scale is all wrong for the one dude carrying the wood, but I think that's building the tabernacle. So, but yeah, when you talk about lessons in obedience, I mean, hello, it's just literally calling out like, we're going to train you to comply.
that's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Obedience training like a dog.
Like a dog.
Oh yeah, you're right. I think it is Moses because there's another picture down here of the staff, and then that's probably his brother Aaron next to him.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, it says Moses. Yep, it is.
Okay, and that is where the first page of it starts here. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I should have grabbed alcohol for this one. Okay. Lessons in obedience, y'all. Here we go. Our last lesson showed us that God worked so many exciting miracles to bring the Israelites out of sinful Egypt. After many years in slavery, they had forgotten most of God's laws. But now that the Israelites were free, God began to teach his laws to them. Many times God met with Moses on Mount Sinai to tell him various laws to teach the Israelites. And on one very special occasion, God's special occasion, Holy Day, God thundered out to all the Israelites the 10 commandments or 10 basic laws for man to live by. These laws were not new. God had taught them to Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. Really? Really? This is the first time
So
I'm hearing this.
so goes the lore.
I mean, does any other church like teach that? That Adam and Eve were actually taught the Ten Commandments? Really?
Well,
Okay.
I don't know, but I
Because
think he had a reason that I'll, yeah. You want to finish it all?
yeah, it'll tie into his plan, I'm sure. If only God's commandments had been obeyed by Adam and Eve and all those who lived after them, we would be living in a world much different from the one we are living in today. Can you imagine a world of no wars or crime, no sickness, poverty, suffering, or unhappy families? Can I
Oh
just
my
add
God.
something here? Okay. So the
Yes.
Ten Commandments, the first one is, Thou shalt not have any gods before me. Apparently gods weren't introduced until later, all the images, the graven images, because that's also in the Ten Commandments. How the fuck did Adam and Eve know what graven fucking images were? They were in the Garden of Eden with a bunch of animals and fruit trees.
I don't think anything in Genesis 1, 2, or whatever would indicate that God gave this set of 10, because also there's multiple different sets of commandments in there.
Okay.
So this is where I think Armstrong used this to get people to look around them at stuff not going right in the world and be like, well, this would be better if people would have just not been sinful from the beginning. Thanks,
Right.
Adam. So it was how he was trying to reach into saying that he had the original, the first, the only true ideal, what God wanted.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Which I think is why I still struggle with the idea of like, well, for a long time, like, oh, if it's old and the original, then that's the best. Or, mm,
Oh, like all those original manuscripts that some people talk about, Pats. The original manuscripts of the Bible.
oh my God.
Dude.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's only talking about rules and commands, and you must do this, you shouldn't do that. Like definitely there's none of that like connecting to a relationship with Jesus stuff. Well, obviously it's
Yeah.
Old
Yeah.
Testament anyway, but yeah, blaming Adam and Eve and all of our sins on the fact that things don't work perfect in this world.
Yeah.
Gross.
And these
Gross.
are
Gross.
fourth graders. Okay. Yep.
Hmm.
I just had to remind myself these are fourth graders reading this, and that's just sort of the intro. Okay. Did you want to take the next section?
I mean, one more thing to say.
Okay.
I mean, don't you think that like what is a fourth grader? 9 years old?
Yeah, around
So
there.
think about the enormous burden that puts on a little 9-year-old. They're just fucking trying to figure out the world, and they're being told right there in just like this sneaky around it way that disobedience causes all suffering.
Yeah, it's pretty gross.
It's so fucked up.
Well, I mean, that's what taught you and I to be afraid of making mistakes, and therefore we didn't progress. We didn't really learn anything else. Just absorb what we were taught in this shit. Because if we made a mistake, these were the consequences. All kinds of terrible things happen.
Well, and you wouldn't, as a kid, like I remember thinking, well, I didn't want to make the world bad. I wanted to make the world good. And if
Hmm.
that's how you make the world good, I'm going to try to do it as good as I can.
Okay, so it looks like the next section here is just a story about how Moses returned to Mount Sinai. Yes?
Oh, you know what happened though when he was up there on the mountain was the people, the story of the people like getting restless, which to me is like, and doing the golden calf thing, right? So the Israelites like couldn't handle it that Moses was gone for what, an entire week. And they're like, that's it. God's not real. We're just going to make a gold thing and worship that, which is so funny because it's kind of indicating this idea that people are just that unable to stick with something that they need someone to keep them like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
under a rod and staff. all the time, or they
Mm-hmm.
can't contain their shit.
Well, I did want to point out this little section after this story. Okay, we know the story of Moses and the golden calf. Um, it says, perhaps you could think of a time in school or with neighborhood children when you were faced with the choice of going along with the crowd or standing up for what God says is right. Perhaps they want you to go along with a lie about something so none of you would be punished. Or maybe you were dared to take something that did not belong to you. And it gives a little section here to actually write about your experience and any lessons you learned in these lines below. Holy crap.
Holy moly. I this stuff like I fully took all of this stuff in.
You remember this specific lesson?
I mean, it's familiar enough to me, like seeing the pictures, they hit
Mm-hmm.
something in my brain that I remember.
Yeah, same. Okay, so Moses's brother Aaron, he went along with like worshiping this new idol, and that's the example they're trying to set here. Be like, don't go along with the crowd, stick to your guns, follow God's laws. Yeah.
And I will say, not that it had to happen this way, but I do think my resolve against the terrible peer pressure was
Mm-hmm.
definitely strengthened by messages like this when I was little. So I'm not saying it's a good thing. I could have been strong against peer pressure for doing things I shouldn't do without that, but this definitely got me in fucking line, you know? Okay, the Moses sees the calf and like, Aaron, why the fuck are you doing this? Oh, he didn't say it that way though.
No, that's exactly how he said it, Pat. Fuck was a word back then.
Okay, so I'm at the bottom of page 4. Aaron
Okay.
realized his mistake and was very sorry for having given in to the sinful desires of the people. And as God commanded Moses, those who had taken part in this idol worship, oh God, were slain. I wasn't expecting that. They did what? They got
They were
deaded.
killed. They were
Holy
slain.
shit. Talk about scaring a
If
9-year-old.
if that doesn't make a 9-year-old terrified to make mistakes, ugh.
Did you go along with telling the teacher a lie? Look what happens to people who go along with things that are against God's way. Slain. Okay, that's fun.
Yeah.
So let's see. Then they talk about the tent that was the tabernacle.
Tabernacle was another word that we heard a lot growing up in WCT.
Yes, but we heard it kind of differently because we kept the Feast of Tabernacles, which Feast of Booths, I forget which Jewish holy day dates it like kind of corresponds to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so we would go to like a temporary dwelling, which was one of the church feast sites every year, which was, like their big convention, right? Like
Temporary dwelling, yeah.
it was a business convention. Let's just be real about what it was. But for us as
Absolutely.
kids, it was Christmas because we didn't get Christmas. And the Feast
Yeah,
of
we had to get
Tabernacles was
fucking
the one time we
something.
got presents. Yeah, it was the one time we got presents. But so this on this page here, this is page 5. Yes, page 5, there's a little diagram to fill out, which again, things that little me would have absolutely loved and felt very cool for
Mm-hmm.
doing, which
Interaction.
was which was materials for the tabernacle. And it actually had us go to Exodus, to 6 chapters in Exodus, and to fill out all of the materials. So the metals, the colors, and the fabric and other materials that were instructed by God in those in those chapters for how the tabernacle was to be built.
Because that's really important to a 9-year-old to know how the tabernacle was built in the Bible. Mm,
And why
okay.
would these specific things, metals, colors, fabrics, etc., be important to the all-knowing, all-powerful creator of the entire fucking universe? Why?
Patty, I think this is why I study things that are kind of pointless. Like I pick apart little details of things that really have no point, but I'm just like, oh, that's the answer to that. This might be where I get it from. Be like, that is absolutely pointless for a child to know, or maybe just it was to teach them to learn how to look and find an answer within the Bible. I don't know.
I mean, yes, to get them into the Bible, but also to pay attention to the details because
Right. Okay.
God's gonna get you if you don't.
Yeah. All about the details,
Oh
sis.
my God. Ugh.
Yeah, it's not about God's love or anything. It's about the details of materials fucking used for the tabernacle. Yeah,
Yeah.
Armstrong would have been more into something like that. Yeah.
Well, and think about it. It's like reinforcing the idea that you can't make mistakes either. You know, that
Right.
God needed everything just absolutely so. Like he notices everything, so don't make a mistake. And then at the same time, we're in school where if we get something wrong, it gets a bright red mark and it makes our overall grade lower. And then kids
Mm-hmm.
stratify themselves according to smartness, which, by the way, school grades have nothing to do with smartness. Fuck all the way off with that. But that's how it was taught to
Yeah.
us. And so we're getting both of those messages at the same time. And, like, no wonder I gave everything I had to my schoolwork because those details mattered for if God would accept me or not, or if my teachers would accept me or not.
Yeah, you were all about the grade point average, weren't you? Doing good
Well, I
grades
mean,
in
in high
school.
school, you should be, but because of how the world works. But in little grades, like getting, making mistakes when we're young is how you learn. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
honestly, I guess all the time, but like if you don't get it right, you probably remember it after that. But if you're shamed for it, it gets in the way of all of that.
right.
Ugh. Yes. Being controlled via being scrutinized. Isn't that fun? Mm-hmm. God's always watching.
I don't know why I never like strive to get really good grades in school. I don't know that I ever really tried that hard. I wasn't interested.
Really? Well, see, you
Yeah.
also are the one that thinks that this indoctrination didn't really affect you, or it just made you shut down. It didn't make you do it.
Right. And
But
maybe that was the reason for the poor grades, is because I shut down and then I zoned out everything that I was being taught, just like church.
yeah, I think you're probably right. Well, and you have to recognize though that both of our ways of dealing with it was 100% trauma responses, right? Because when you feel threatened, there's that fight or flight response kind of thing, like in the wild, like freeze. Well, fight or flight or freeze, right? But freeze is a shutdown response. And so that's what you did. But another one that's part of that same response system is fawning, which is like sort of sucking up to the leaders or, being hyper vigilant to do everything the leaders tell you so you stay safe. Both
Hmm.
of those responses are trauma responses.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
clearly.
So I'm looking at page 7 in this booklet. Again, this is for 9-year-olds, fourth graders.
Hmm.
This is Two Priests Rebel. Mind if I read it?
Go for it.
Okay. Moses made it very clear to Aaron and his sons that God wanted all tabernacle duties carried out exactly and solemnly. Aaron's two sons, Nadab and Abihu, I'm probably saying that wrong, I don't care, are an example of how serious the sin of disobedience is to God.
Oh
One
no.
morning, they arrived at the tabernacle as usual for their duties as priests. The fire on the altar has burned down very low, said Abihu. It's almost time for Father to come take some live coals into the holy place, said Nadab worriedly. We must hurry and get some quickly. I have an idea, suggested Abihu. There is a campfire burning not far from the gate. Let's fill our censers with the live coals from that fire. Both of them knew the only fire that was to be used in the holy place. The holy place sounds like I have a JJ. Was a sacred fire, was the sacred fire from the altar. Nevertheless, they filled their censers with the strange fire and returned to the court. We can't wait for our father any longer, Abihu said impatiently. These coals will soon burn out. The two brothers walked slowly toward the tabernacle and into the room called the holy place. As they sprinkled the incense on the coals that were in their censers, they realized the terrible thing they had done. Fearfully, they ran back toward the curtained entrance, but they had already disobeyed. Ooh, there's that word, disobeyed. And
Hmm.
hissing shafts of fire shot out, from the inner room and struck the men so that they died. What a terrible penalty to pay. But God punished them, just as he warned that he would punish them if they appeared before him without proper regard for his tabernacle rules. It was an example showing that we must all learn that God means what he says.
Yeah.
So, like, this is showing that
I did.
people even trying to do the right thing, but just trying to like get it done in their own way, literally, God killed them with fire.
So they're literally just doing human things. The coals were getting low. They had to keep the fire burning, and so they did what they must to, keep the fire burning. And it's like, so seriously, in today's world, we're just supposed to wait on God.
They did it not according to how God said, though. That was the problem. They were doing the thing that God said was to keep it burning, but they took it from the wrong place somehow. And then there's probably people who know more about it than that. But yeah, they're
God's
just
sakes.
doing a human thing, trying to solve a problem with their own reasoning, and
Yeah.
they were killed for it.
Oh my gosh.
I know. Anyway, um, but I think you wanted to look at the animals here because our next section we're going to go into is God gives health laws, which you guessed it is about clean and unclean animals because in our cult they followed the Old Testament rules about clean and unclean animals, and we're going to learn all about it in this book.
I do actually remember this little picture here with the cow and the donkey and the sheep. I remember coloring that. And I totally remember the clean and unclean animals section here where you unscramble the letters to create the words. I remember this.
Health laws. I love that he calls it health laws too. As long as you eat what God says to eat and not other things, your health is going to be fine. And that's good for us because we told you also not to go to doctors. Shit.
Oh, yeah. And then they have unclean water creatures. So this is from what, like Leviticus 11.
In an earlier lesson, we learned that God told Noah to take on the ark 7 pairs of clean animals and 1 pair of unclean animals. Do you know why Noah took so many more clean animals? That none of them would have fit and they would have been drowned in shit. So he and his family would have plenty to eat, as well as have enough of each kind of animal to reproduce themselves and keep their kind alive after the flood. Ugh, it's so stupid. Okay. Yeah, so it's using, I said this kind of, but it's using food as defining your morality, right? So if you eat
Right.
animals on the clean list, you're fine. If you eat animals on the bad list, then you're bad, you know?
Mm-hmm. I know. I missed all those pepperoni pizza parties in school.
Well, and it's saying that, again, it's saying the idea that like Adam and Eve didn't follow this, that they like ate of the fruit that they weren't supposed to eat of, and therefore that's why we're all so bad and having all these problems because we didn't obey from the beginning and we're still disobeying. And only the ones who know the rules that Armstrong laid out from God, because he speaks for God, are the ones that
Mm-hmm.
can have actually obeyed. And if we don't follow the clean and unclean laws, then we're rebelling just like those Israelites who made a golden calf or who used the wrong coals.
And y'all died for it. When it comes to birds, it says the Bible doesn't give specific rules for determining clean birds. It merely lists the different kinds of birds that are unclean.
I mean, I remember having like huge reactions when I would see people eating shrimp or something. You know, I'd be
Yeah,
like,
you look
oh,
down on them, right? I would do the
well,
same thing.
I don't know if I looked down on them. I was just like, oh no, that's so bad for them. They don't know God's laws. Like I
And
was,
you wanted to tell them, right? But our parents were embarrassed by that, right? Oh, you don't want to spread the truth? You don't want to tell people that they're doing something wrong by eating shrimp?
oh, and our parents would never proselytize because that wasn't part of the church, but they would just sit
Right.
there and be like, if only they knew God's truth, but clearly they aren't chosen. Clearly they aren't part of God's elect.
Oh my God, that's so gross.
It's just disgusting, right? Dad would say that. Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
disgusting the way they break God's laws.
Yeah.
It's terrible. This is like definitely activating me right now.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Brings back a lot of memories of always being careful when we were in buffets during the Feast of Tabernacles to ensure we didn't eat pork or something.
We did once.
I remember that. I remember that.
It was
Yes.
probably like the most delicious beef ribs we'd ever had. And then, wah,
Yeah.
wah.
How did they not know that was pork? It was ribs. And we weren't in fucking Texas where it's all beef ribs. Come on, people.
Yeah, so they named different characteristics of birds, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
All the characteristics. Do they even say it in this lesson? They don't. Okay. So I'm so there's another little section here where they're not going to tell us the characteristics of birds that determine if we can or can't eat them. But instead, we should go to Leviticus 1:20 through 23 and list some of the creatures in that passage on the line below. I'm going to look it up.
All right, let's do it.
All winged insects that walk on all fours are deemed unclean and not to be eaten. Certain winged insects that hop on the ground are permitted. Why? Specifically, locusts, bald locusts, crickets, and grasshoppers are allowed. All other flying insects with four legs are considered unclean. What?
Crunchy, crispy locusts. Yummy, yum. Don't you want that instead of pepperoni on pizza?
I know we never got offered cricket pizza. Come on now.
Yeah, why didn't they take advantage of some of that good insect protein that we were allowed to have according to God?
I'm not going to let this bird thing pass, though. The little kid lesson for us didn't show it, but okay, because what I'm remembering is that the Bible notoriously considers bats to be birds. So I'm wondering if what characteristics of the bat bird that
Yeah, in the Bible.
make it so that we can't eat it. I'm in Deuteronomy 14:11 through 18. Is that really where it is? And then the insect thing is in Leviticus? Is that for real? Okay. So here's the rules about birds. Deuteronomy 14:11. All clean birds you may eat, but these you shall not eat: the eagle, the vulture, the buzzard, the red kite, the falcon, and the kite after their kinds. I mean, so that's like raptors, right? Birds of prey, like
Birds of prey, any that eat carrion.
yeah, okay. I mean, kind of makes sense. Every raven after its kind. But here's the thing, like, why would those rules have existed in the first place? It's because people probably figured out certain things that they ate didn't go well. They got diseases or they got sick or whatever, right? But then
Yeah.
all of a sudden it becomes God's law and it's tied to like now you're just a bad and evil person if you eat it.
Mm-hmm. I
Okay,
mean,
the
just like
os
pigs. I think there was something in history where there was some sort of swine flu and they couldn't eat the pigs. Hence, it became a law in this book not to
well,
eat it.
also for a large part of human history, pigs were what ate human shit.
Yep.
So, you know. Okay, it also says every raven after its kind, the ostrich, the short-eared owl, the seagull, the hawk after their kinds, the little owl, the screech owl, the white owl, the jackdaw, don't even know what that is, the carrion vulture, the fisher owl, the stork, the heron after its kind, and the hoopoe, don't know what that is, and the bat. So it's just listing, but where's the characteristics? Oh, okay, here's the characteristics. Oh, okay. So it doesn't really list characteristics, but people have kind of like extrapolated out from that list, which I think you're right, though, that it's like birds of prey,
Hmm.
like things that eat something other than like seeds and bugs. They're actually eating critters. A clean bird has a craw or a crop. A clean bird has a gizzard with a double lining, which can be easily separated. This is highly specific. A clean bird is not a bird of prey. There you go. A clean bird does
Hmm.
not devour food while flying. What? A clean bird's hind toe and middle front toe are both elongated. When a clean bird stands on a perch, it spreads its toes so that three front ones are on one side of the perch and the hind toe on the opposite side. All unclean
Interesting.
birds lack at least one of these six characteristics. So again, that was extrapolated from the list, but
So it really is just birds of prey. We're not supposed to eat according to Leviticus.
Or a bat. I thought for
Or
sure there'd be something about no birds that have fur. What? 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 Well, you want to look at the back?
sure. So the back, I remember these mystery puzzles. Actually, I
Mhm.
loved the fill in the blanks.
So all of the lessons had a memory verse at the back. This one
Hmm.
is 1 Samuel 15, 22, 23. At least in our church, I'm curious for you other WCG people watching how it went for you. But for us, when it was time to do that month's lesson, it was after church. We would go into this back room in the building that we rented, and all the kids would be in there, and we'd go through the lesson, and then we'd all go up one at a time and have to give our memorized verse.
And I have
Okay.
horrible memories, so I did terrible at that.
And I did great. So I could stand there and be like, yay, God loves me.
Because you memorized Bible verses as a child.
I had to
Gross.
work hard at it though. Like it
Yeah,
wasn't
I
like
know
I
you
could just
did.
read it once and do it. It's like I really had to work to get it in my head.
I know you did. And I just wanted to point out too, editor-in-chief listed here, Herbert W. Armstrong, produced in cooperation with Imperial Schools, a 1983 Worldwide Church of God for the entire contents of this publication. Copyright with
Okay, let's see
Imperial
here.
Schools.
So this one, Samuel 15, 1 Samuel 15, 22, 23 was the memory verse for this one. So I'll just read that. Has the Lord as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of the Lord? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to heed than the fat of rams. For rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, and stubbornness is as iniquity and idolatry. Because you have rejected the word of the Lord, he has also rejected you from being king. So fear, 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 fear. So easily God can turn on you. Okay, so this is what I'm seeing here. So it's like, does the Lord delight in burnt offerings as much as he does in your obedience? It's actually better if you obey. It's better to obey than to burn up meat. So, like, I think
Yeah.
this was justification in the idea of like, well, they used to do burnt offerings, but now we do what God says by just obeying, which I'm like, they were saying completely different things for what we had to obey because it wasn't obeying the coals and the burnt offerings anymore. But maybe that's what
Right.
they said was like the Jesus thing, right? Jesus was the
Hmm.
sacrifice, so now we just obey, other stuff, except not the mixed fabrics because nobody ever cared about that.
Which is interesting. That was going to be another thing that I brought up was the mixed fabrics. No one seems to care about the mixed fabrics passage in there. Not even Armstrong. Like, why?
Ugh,
Just
yeah.
ignore this one little bit. But speaking of Jesus, did Armstrong focus on the New Testament at all for these lessons? Because I feel like it was just Old Testament based for all of them.
It might have gotten into Jesus by the time it was eighth and ninth grade. We'll find out as we go along this series.
Mm,
But yeah,
okay.
you're totally right. It was very Old Testament based here. Well, because if he wanted to control the people, which Armstrong definitely did, then the Old Testament was ripe for that. There was so many examples he could give that were like reinforcing this idea that if you had one wrong action, you're just totally doomed. God is going to reject you, kill you on the spot, whatever.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, isn't that just a way to lead you to anxiety that causes either the shutdown or the perfectionist ways of being? And then
Yeah.
think about how many kids were probably neurodivergent that we weren't like addressing or understanding societally at that time.
Hmm.
And so then, like, they go, even if they try to be perfect and try to do everything, like, they're not going to get it right because humans aren't actually made to get everything right. Like, that's not who we are as a species, So it's this imposed perfectionism that isn't actually consistent with humanity. And since no one can live up to it, everyone feels like a pile of fucking garbage.
Hmm. And we
Ugh.
wonder why people get so depressed. They say, oh, it's because they don't have God in their life. That's why they're depressed. No, it's not.
Maybe you didn't give enough of your nickel that you got for your allowance into the offering plate.
Abraham, that godly man who pimped out his wife to the Pharaoh.
Oh, yes, I'm glad he spawned all the religions in the world just about. Okay, so I had forgotten that the colors, the cover colors were different from year to year.
Hmm.
Because, the 80s was full of like neons and stuff. So, of course, Armstrong went the opposite route.
The more boring, the better. The more beige you are in church, the better.
You mean the more white you are, the better?
Ugh.
Racist fuck. Good pick because this is Abraham Obeys God is the title of this one, Nancy. We just have a theme of obedience going on here today as we revisit our childhood lessons.
Perfect. Let's
Yay.
find out how we can be more obedient, pets. In the
Crying
bedroom.
out
Ooh.
loud. Is that like a fortune cookie you put in bed at the end of everything?
Oh, yeah, I think that is a game, actually. Yeah.
Okay, so I think we'll notice in this one that we're looking at a lot more pictures and a lot fewer words because we're looking at second graders now. So, I mean, yes, I think most second graders are starting to read, but just barely. So, this is definitely still where to me at least, they're still expecting the parents to read this to the kids and do this with the kids.
Look at that. It's like baby poop green.
Absolutely, it is. And there he
Yeah.
is, the old patriarch with his staff and his sheep on the ground beside him, looking up at him adoringly.
Hey, is that Sean Connery on page 3?
Most definitely. And why does he have such dark eyebrows when everything else is white? I don't get it.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Okay, so Sodom and Gomorrah, whenever I see the name Gomorrah, it just kind of looks like gonorrhea for a split second.
It definitely does.
It aligns with the poop green cover.
There you go.
Many years after the flood, a baby boy was born to Terah and his wife, who were descendants of Shem. They named him Abram. When Abram was a grown man, 75 years old, God began to call him. God told him to pack up and move from his home in Haran to a land that he would show him. Abram obeyed. So when they say God told him, does that mean he heard him like telepathically, or God showed up and you're like, yo, dude, this is what I need you to do? Or it was just kind of inspired on his heart, like Holy Spirit deal, and then he just knew what God needed him to do. How did that work? How did
I
he
don't know.
convey his
Maybe he was
message?
schizophrenic. Maybe he was
Okay.
75 and ate something bad and was having delusions. I mean, like,
Okay.
what
So
this
we read the
tells
books
me
then.
is whoever wrote this was probably 75 and they were like feeling bad about not having done anything in their life yet. So they're like, look, there's this whole story. If God could do this for this guy Abram starting at age 75, well, shit, I could probably do stuff too.
Created his own little adventure once he thought his life was over. Cool. All
Mm-hmm.
right. He took his wife Sarai and his nephew Lot with him. After a long journey, they arrived in the land of Canaan, which was to be their new home. All right. And we have Sean Connery here. Because Abram obeyed God, he was blessed greatly. He had much gold and silver and many and many flocks and herds. Okay, God pays people in gold and silver. That's how he blesses them. Just
But what?
fucking serious.
Oh, good catch. You're not wrong to point that
No,
out.
God
But
does
like,
not bless people with riches.
oh, well, there's plenty of people who think that,
Well, of
but
course.
because of stuff like this. But how would Abram have known to obey God? Are they saying like he already had the texts of Genesis and somehow, well,
I
because in that other one we were looking at, it said that because Adam and Eve had disobeyed the Ten Commandments, which somehow they fucking should have known, even though they weren't, written until that God wrote them with his finger on stone when Moses was around, like a lot of hundreds of years later.
But Patty, remember, according to Armstrong, God taught Adam and Eve everything, including sex tutorials. Okay? He taught them how sex worked. Keep that in mind. So obviously he would have told them about the
Gross.
Ten Commandments. But
That's what Armstrong claimed, but there's no such evidence in the dusty Bible book.
Okay, moving on. In a short while, the area was no longer big enough for Abram's flocks and Lot's flocks.
Say that 5 times fast. Lots flocks, lots flocks,
No
lots
longer
flocks.
big enough for Abram's flocks and Lot's flocks. Because
Those
the
guys
shepherds,
had such big flocks.
Abram decided that he and Lot should separate. He gave Lot the choice to stay there or move on. Lot chose to move to the plains near Sodom and Gomorrah.
Gonorrhea.
Oh, we know what's going to happen in Sodom and Gomorrah. It's a
Yikes.
24-hour Pride Festival.
Okay, and so here on page 4, I see Abram standing and looking out over the Pride Lands. Only I don't see Simba. He's not holding him up to
The
show him.
circle of life. Oh, shit. My voice
Abram
just
has a
cracked.
really nice dress on, though, like a floor-length choir dress, that looks like.
Easy access for goats.
Ew.
Sorry.
Oh, it's
All right.
okay. I'm gonna read right here because I was making a joke about looking at the Pride Lands with Simba, but look what it says. After Lot had gone, God told Abram to look in all directions. All the land he saw, God would give to him and his descendants. God, God promised that he would have so many descendants that they would be as the dust of the earth in number. And then, okay, I'm looking at page 5 here, and we've got Abram sitting here, and like the woman's in the tent, clearly baking bread, as a woman should fucking do, and get into the kitchen, bitch. Yeah.
Meanwhile, what do you think Abram and his homies are talking about here? Like sex positions?
When Abram was 99 years old, God spoke to him and changed his name to Abraham, which means a father of many nations. So what does Abram mean? Just a father?
I, why do people fucking change their names throughout the Bible? Like, come on. Why don't
You
you
know,
keep it
why I
consistent?
think a lot of times I think they changed their name in the Bible because there was actually 2 separate stories. And then when they
Mm-hmm.
compiled all their texts, they were like, oh shit, these are kind of the same story, but kind of different. And so maybe we'll like tell it twice, or maybe we'll just go and smush the parts of it together and oh crap, the name. Well, those people use that name and those people use that name. So I guess maybe there was a time when like God changed the name for a reason. Let's do that. None of it actually makes sense unless you look at it through the lens of humans just being humans and trying to figure out the world.
Sounds
Okay.
legit to me. I'll go ahead and accept that.
He also changed Sarai's name to Sarah because that
Mm-hmm.
sounds more English.
Yep.
God said they would have a son and should name him Isaac. Sometime later, 3 beings, oh, that's what it is, who appeared as men, 3 beings who appeared as men, so they weren't men, so they were smooth down there, maybe, came
Yep.
to visit Abraham. 2 were angels. The other one, oh, the other was the one who later became Jesus Christ. It did not say that in the Old Testament text.
What a
That is,
revelation.
he told Abraham that Sarah would soon give birth to a son. He also told Abraham that the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah would be destroyed because of the wickedness of the people there.
Again, how did God convey this message?
Through the angels and the other being that was
Mm.
apparently going to be Jesus Christ someday, according to Armstrong.
I just wanted to point out something here. The picture on page 6. You remember how we got spanked all the time as kids? I saw this drawing and it just reminded me of people getting spanked. Maybe because that dude on the left that he's holding his hand up like he's gonna spank them.
And the
Yeah.
woman at the center of the picture has some very nice 80s hair and glasses, or not glasses, 80s. She has some very nice 80s hair and earrings going on.
Oh, you're totally right. Oh, I
Yeah.
remember these images. Oh my goodness.
And it's
Okay.
so weird. Like these people definitely look European. So stupid.
Hmm. Hmm.
Eh,
They can't be brown, Pats. Can't have that. Not
yeah.
God's true chosen people.
Oh my God. Except even according to Armstrong's stories, like the God hadn't transferred his elect status to white English speakers yet. So even in Armstrong's telling, they should have still been Middle Eastern looking people. Okay. The two angels were sent to Sodom to warn Lot of the coming destruction. Wait, so the angels had to be sent over there by the someday Jesus character or by Abraham? Doesn't say. Anyway.
I don't know. How much time was in between these two?
Well, I don't know. This is how mythology works, right? Like you have a story of these two characters, and then there's a story with this character and a story with the other character separately. Like
Absolutely.
mythology, babe, mythology. Okay. When Lot took the angels into his house, the evil men, oh God, they're going to say it. The evil men of Sodom wanted them to come out. The men even tried to break down the door to get to them. It was then that the angels struck these men blind. The angels then hurried Lot and his family out of the city. They were warned not to look back as they left.
Okay, I mean, they didn't actually say what the men wanted, but it was implied here. Yeah.
Just they were evil and they wanted to get to them.
And get to them so that they can stick their dicks in them, even though angels don't have dicks. Hmm.
Or buttholes?
Or but they don't have any genitalia, right?
I don't know. It never
I
says.
think this was angels. They don't have sex parts.
I mean, that's according to the movie Dogma, they don't.
Then it's definitely legit.
But why would they have sex parts? And for that matter, why would the members of the God family have sex parts? None of it makes sense. None of it makes any sense. It's just for control. Okay.
Yep.
Was this the one where Lot was like, here, take my virgin daughters instead? It was?
Sure was. Yes.
Oh, they didn't say that in this second grader book for some reason.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah, they just said, oh, the men were trying to get to them. They left a few bits out, surprisingly, actually. The Worldwide Church of God got pretty biblical.
They
They
left out
stuck
the
pretty true.
they left out the wobbly bit specifically.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, this picture on page 7, I absolutely remember, and for some reason it was my favorite, and I was always like, I would totally have done what Lot's wife did.
Be that beautiful silhouette with the fire behind you, you badass.
I know, I do think it's a gorgeous image, actually.
We should color this sometime as adults. That might be fun.
The temptation to look back was too great for Lot's wife. She wanted to take one last look at what had been her home.
Aww.
As is very human.
Yes, yeah.
As punishment, although if she lived in a city where people were beating down the door to try to rape your guests and yeah, whatever, I said it, then yeah, you'd think maybe there'd be okay. You'd feel okay leaving that, but whatever. God turned her in, as punishment for her obedience, God turned her into a pillar of salt. And here's the money line. It is very important that we obey God and do what we are told.
In other words, do what your parents tell you to do.
I think they even talked about it like that God would tell the parents what was right and the parents would instruct the children. Yeah. So already by second grade, they're not saying that God will kill you, but they're saying that God turned this lady into a pillar of salt, which you're not alive at that point. And so you'd better do what God tells you to do. Like, it's a threat.
How can people look at this and not think mythology? Being turned into a pillar of salt? Man, this deity's got quite creative side, huh? Of all the punishments, yeah, you're just going to be a pillar of salt.
And then we get to page 8 where we see the happy grandparents. I mean, parents holding up their little baby. Look at how that baby can really hold his neck up.
Hey, I want to hear about her knocking boots with the hot pharaoh of Egypt. Why isn't this in here?
Where is that story?
All right, so I'll go ahead and read page 8 then. It was hard for Abraham and Sarah to believe God would still give them a son because they were both very old by now. Yeah, they were old as fuck. But God kept his promise, and when Abraham was 100 years old and Sarah was 90 years old, Sarah had a son whom they named Isaac. Cool.
Oh, I think I said 99 earlier. Sorry, I think I said 99 earlier, but 90. Excuse me. What a young lady she was.
Yeah. I don't know what lesson we were all supposed to get in that biblical story. I'm just like them being so old and having a kid. Like, why then? God
The
decides.
the mighty power of God. Like, so for sure everyone would know she was like way past menopause or whatever they called it at that time. But also this is a time when like a lot of women were dying in childbirth. So she probably
Yeah.
only got to be 90 years old because she didn't have kids before then. Otherwise, kids killed people.
Hmm. True. Oh God, the story of oh
Yep.
Abraham and Isaac.
Oh,
Oh yeah, yep,
oh, are you ready? Are you ready?
yeah. Oh, this
Oh,
chart.
so sweet baby Isaac finally made his way, the bouncing little Gerber baby, into the arms of the grand patriarch of all.
Yep, here we go. Okay.
Yes.
Up to now, Abraham had obeyed God in all he was asked to do. I don't know how anyone could obey God in everything they do, but you know. However, God wanted to be sure that Abraham would obey him by doing whatever he told him to do. So God decided to give Abraham a very difficult test. God told him to offer as a burnt offering his only son, Isaac. Here, you're old as fuck, and I'm gonna give you this blessing. Finally, a child at the tender age of 100. Oh, and by the way, a little while later, I'm gonna make you kill him just to test and see how faithful you are. Whew.
That is a narcissist move
Mm-hmm.
to say, I'm going to do this and see if you'll do it just to see if you'll do anything I tell you to
Yeah,
do.
fuck you, God. You're a narcissist.
Oh, Yahweh was a fucker.
Yeah. Abraham left very early the next morning to do as God had commanded him. Oh, can you imagine what would have been going through the dude's mind at the time? What?
Nancy, page 10, this image. Oh my God. This is
Yeah.
for a 7-year-old.
Yep.
This is a person all bound and roped and sitting on logs with a knife held to his throat. And this is for a 7-year-old to just color in and be like, yay, I'm doing what God wants me to do. Oh
Yay,
my
the
gosh.
Bible is fun. Murder.
Murder, rape, pillaging, death
Yep.
by fire.
Gonna burn him after. Jesus. Yeah, I suppose he was, right? Burnt offering. Yeah, he was gonna kill him and then he was gonna burn him right there on those logs.
This is not for children.
Shit, dude.
And yet it was.
The WCG did not hold back in many regards. Here we go. As Abraham and Isaac made their way up the mountain, many thoughts must have gone through Abraham's mind. No shit. Abraham knew God had promised many children through Isaac. He also knew God could resurrect Isaac. So Abraham trusted God. Holy shit, resurrect him? So he's like, oh, if I kill him, I think God will just bring him back to life, right? What?
Armstrong took anything from anywhere in the Bible and just put it together to explain stuff to go the way he wanted. So
Right.
there's an example of it.
Awesome. Okay. Yay! Moving on. As Abraham was about to slay Isaac, God commanded him to stop. Now, God knew Abraham would withhold nothing from him because
Wait
of
a
this,
second,
and
wait a second, wait a second. So I have the recognition that me thinking about our dad spanking us didn't seem that bad because here God was literally asking a parent to murder and burn his child. And I was only getting a wooden spoon to my ass.
you justified abuse because somebody else out there had it so much worse. That is
Or
disgusting.
because I knew God could command so much worse. And so I shouldn't complain about just a spanking. Yeah.
We were just primed for dating abusers in our future, weren't we?
Yep.
Damn.
And making up reasons why it was probably okay because this could
Because
have
other
happened instead, or
yeah, didn't have it that bad. At least he didn't hit my face. It was just my ass. Because of this and many other examples of obedience,
there
Abraham
it is
became
again.
known as the father of the faithful because he was so obedient. Abraham, or millions of his descendants, are still living on the earth today. He died at 175 years of age, having lived a long life of obedience to God. Now, that's a life I wouldn't live one day.
So
No,
he
thank you.
became father of the faithful. It's like a it's like an extreme double dare show, like a American Gladiator or one of those survivor shows or something, will you eat bugs and survive to win the prize at
Hmm.
the end? It's like God's version is, how far will you go? Step right up if you'll hold a knife to your son's neck and cut right through it. If God tells you to kill someone, you'd better do it.
Yep.
Boy, I bet that goes well if you have schizophrenia. And as we know, there are far more people with delusions that are religious in nature than not. Because once you believe something and are taught to believe something that makes no damn sense whatsoever, you're just open to nonsense. All right. So there's not quite there's a lot more pictures, fewer words, and then at the end here on page 11 there are still some little puzzles and games to keep the kiddies excited about their God.
Wasn't this so fun that we did all this kind of shit in school, but then we also had to do it for church? It was like just endless amounts of homework. Good times. When did we do fun things as kids? I don't even remember.
No. Yeah, like where was our time to build things and get in the dirt and
Should we do one more? I'd kind of like to see one of the later ones. Like, how far did it go? Eighth or ninth grade? I would like to see how it kind of changes over the years. So this was for second grade, you said? This one?
yeah, so our first one was fourth grade because I think that's like age of reason, right? So I was just kind of curious of how they were getting kids drawn in then. But yeah, right. So then we just covered second grade, which to me that seemed way above a second grade like level
Yeah.
of content and level of reading. And so that seems like sit down and read this little story with your parents because it's so great.
Right.
Um, but yeah,
Mm.
so once we're in eighth and ninth level, we're looking at kind of a different look. And I don't think I did these. Do you want to look at ninth grade or eighth grade?
Maybe ninth grade. The later,
Okay.
the better.
So for level 9, the different lessons, the first one is the New Testament church, then the apostles of Christ, the life of Paul. So they are New Testament by the time they're in ninth
Okay.
grade.
Okay.
Um,
Oh boy.
Paul's journey to Rome. Oh, we should do this one. God's Sabbath day.
Oh,
That's going to be him taking New Testament and still trying to justify doing Old Testament Sabbath. That'll be fun. Okay. Fundamental Doctrines of God's Church, The History of God's Church, Parts 1 and 2. I wonder if he gets into the Irish princess that made them all be white after that then. Oh, and Part 3, Spring Festival Edition. There was always a Spring Festival Edition. And then Why Do You Keep God's Festivals? The Fall Festival Edition. Isn't this
oh
great
boy.
fun? All right, so we're going to go into God's Sabbath Day. So we are now looking at the youth Bible lessons from level 9.
Ooh, I like this color a lot better.
I noticed right away on page 2 here that, holy moly, that's a lot smaller text. Like the text was definitely the biggest in the second grade one, and now it's pretty
Hmm.
small. And there's a lot of text and looks like a lot
Yeah.
of different lines that you're supposed to look up a scripture and fill in the answer to the question. We noticed that all the early kid stuff was Old Testament, telling, the cute Bible stories of sodomy and things like that. But then, although he inserted Jesus Christ whenever it served his purposes in the Old Testament stuff, like, oh
Sure
yeah,
did.
that angel, that was Jesus. Yeah, for real, guys.
Hmm.
Um, but because he also did believe in Jesus, but not in the same way that other Christian churches did, he had to still justify the Old Testament things that he was holding on to, like to try to prove why they were still needing to be done, even though Jesus had come and all of that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So the Sabbath was a big one, right? Because all the modern churches, for I don't know how long, did their church on Sunday. I don't know the history of all of that. But that was one thing that definitely set us apart as members of the Worldwide Church of God was the fact that we kept the Sabbath, which was Saturday, and it wasn't just Saturday, it was specifically Friday sundown to Saturday sundown.
Well, that was
Yeah.
why he kind of started the church to begin with, because he thought he had something valuable that nobody else really knew about. There were a few churches at the time that, you know, held Sabbath sundown to sundown.
Everyone
Friday to
else is
Saturday,
doing
but
it
everyone
wrong,
else, exactly. He
but
felt
I have the
special.
truth.
Yes.
Ugh. All right. Well, I think we should read the beginning of this, even though it makes me want to throw up just looking at it.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. I gotcha. All
Okay.
right. Okay. First off, I just want to mention he says on the cover that is the partially restored synagogue in Capernaum. It's believed to be built on the original site of a synagogue in which Christ himself preached on the Sabbath. Ooh, making this so much more relevant. Throw in some pictures of where Christ actually preached.
That means
All
it's all
right.
real because there's
Yeah.
a temple.
All
Uh-huh.
right. The Sabbath, capitalized, is a day God set aside for the benefit of all mankind. Didn't benefit us. We missed a lot of birthday parties as kids and, other stuff like that we could have been doing instead of going to Sabbath.
Nancy,
Like,
Nancy, God's ways are so much higher than birthday parties. How
oh, I know.
incredibly sinful of you, how self-serving of you, because all you're thinking about is what you can get out of that. I'm
Correct.
sorry, but that is the doctrine of get. And
Mm-hmm.
Armstrong promoted the doctrine of give. So stop wanting things for yourself and
Yeah.
remember that it's God's Sabbath and he owns you and he can burn you up like that if he wants to.
Or turn me into a fucking pillar of salt, Wonder how my tits would look if they were salt. That'd be pretty amazing. Or like,
They'd be very lickable.
very lickable salt tit.
Hee hee.
Salty tit. Wait, what was I going to say? Okay, so yeah, we were talking about how the Sabbath is a benefit for all mankind. I didn't get very far on this so far, did I? It was designed as a special day of rest and worship, an opportunity to rejuvenate both mind and body. It just frustrated me, so I don't know how that was restful. Actually, a rest would have been like sleeping at home, getting out some good masturbation sessions. I would have really preferred to do that than going to Sabbath, but
I did
yeah,
once. I did once. I
I
stayed home
know.
not feeling
That's
good and I
amazing.
did that the whole day and then I was busted.
Sorry, I missed church. I was masturbating.
Hey, we're in ninth grade in this book. These are the things we would be thinking about anyway.
Oh, I was masturbating by the time before these things even came out. Keeping the Sabbath as God intended is one of life's greatest joys. I'm sorry, I can't keep reading without commenting on it. Like, how is Sabbath a great joy? Sitting in 2, sometimes 3-hour church services?
You'll get deaded if you don't. So, yay!
It's delusion. It's like happiness delusion.
Well, and remember, you always had to pretend to be happy and have positive emotions all the time.
Correct. We
Because
couldn't show any
anger,
anger or
yeah,
anything like that. Yeah.
that was a sign of you not doing the right thing around God.
That's how you get turned into a zombie, empty shell like our parents today.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. It is a time of physical rest and mental relaxation after a busy week at school or on the job. Oof. God gives us additional time each week to reflect on spiritual things, to learn more about his great purpose for mankind. What else would I be doing, right? In this lesson, you will learn about the Sabbath, when, for whom, and by whom it was made. You'll learn why the Sabbath is very special to God. You'll discover its meaning for those who keep it as he commanded. And you will learn why and how the professing Christian world changed it to another day. Here we go. Those othering people that go to church on Sundays.
Did you catch that? Professing. As
Professing.
in, those aren't real Christians. They just say they are.
Right. That's why I had to look at the word twice. I'm like, oh, yeah, professing. Okay. Yep. Yep.
Okay, Armstrong was just so wordy and he just talked around his points all the time with threats and
Mm-hmm.
pointing out electness and stuff like that. So I guess I was kind of
Yeah.
hoping we could find where in here he tries to say, oh God, he's talking about the flood. He's got the first
Mm-hmm.
7-day week.
Mr. Herbert W. Armstrong, pastor general of the Worldwide Church of God, has often pointed out that God instructed our first parents, Adam and Eve, in the way that was good for them. He taught them what they needed to know in order to live happy and successful lives, including how to have sex. Don't we know? Part of God's instruction involved the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And then there's a little section where we need to write down God's instructions about this particular tree found in the Garden of Eden. Yeah, so it's still kind of a workbook, but yeah, definitely for older kids.
I see
Oh God,
something.
what? What?
Okay, this next little bit, I know you're about to read it. I'm going to read it now.
No, go ahead.
This tree represented the way of deciding for oneself right from wrong, good from evil, rather than relying on God's revealed instruction, represented by the tree of life. God warned if they ate of the tree, they would ultimately die. He puts his own words in there. He said ultimately, because by then he had probably heard the whole thing of like, but they ate it and they didn't die. Duh. Like, because what it actually says is like, they shall surely die, or in that day they shall die, or something much more definitive. And so he changes it here to ultimately. Like, he just puts in whatever little words he wants to like just twist the meaning ever so slightly so that your rational thought around it can't connect.
He was a clever manipulator, that Armstrong.
Sure was.
Wow. Okay, so
okay, I'll keep going. Soon afterwards, Eve was tempted by the serpent, Satan the devil, and he quotes he puts in Revelation 12:9. Because again, so this tells me he's definitely heard all of the rational arguments to be like, yeah, Genesis doesn't mean all those things. So he's saying, yes, it is Satan the devil, the serpent. If you look at Revelation, which has nothing to do with Genesis, to eat the fruit of the tree, believing Satan, she ate of the fruit and gave some to Adam. Those evil women, we should definitely subjugate them. By disobeying God, Adam and Eve decided to choose for themselves what was good and what was evil. So don't think for yourself. They chose the way of human experimentation. What the fuck? Mankind has been living this way ever since. Yeah, human experimentation. See what works. Keep doing the things that work. What doesn't work or goes badly, hey, we learn and we don't do that anymore. Yeah, that's how it fucking works.
I always love that grunt of yours, Patty.
It's so frustrating. There are many verses in the Bible showing that God's way, defined by his law, as told by me, is for the good of all mankind. Notice what the following verses, okay, so you're supposed to look at a bunch of shit in Deuteronomy, then look at what King David says about God's law, then look at what the Apostle Paul writes about God's law. People through the ages have believed that God's law is harsh, cruel, overbearing, a burden, and a yoke of bondage.
Yep.
And not the fun kind of bondage. But the Bible certainly does not teach this. It teaches just the opposite, that God's law is for the good of all mankind. Okay. Okay, so then he goes through that Adam and Eve didn't follow God's way, and that they taught their children the way they thought was best. And the result of their disobedience, of course, was, okay, what did God decide to do because of the violence that filled the earth? Okay. So I think we're talking flood. Yeah, we're talking flood. We're talking Tower of Babel. And then it says, Abraham lived more than 400 years before Moses. Yet we learn that Abraham obeyed God's laws. The Sabbath, which had been instituted at creation, was one of the laws Abraham kept. Okay. Again, how did Abraham know these things? God just put it in his heart, right? Many people believe the Ten Commandments were not given until the time of Moses. Yeah, because that's when it shows up in the Bible. But the Ten Commandments and other laws of God were in force from creation. If you would like to read more about this important subject, write for the free article, Were the Ten Commandments in force before Moses?
Oh, wow.
So go read my other explainer. Don't worry, I've explained it all. Oh, you talk about calendars, Nancy. So I'll jump down here. I'm on page 5. For nearly a century, the Israelites were slaves to the Egyptians, who did not worship the true God. The Egyptian calendar was quite different from the one God had given. Instead of
Mm-hmm.
a 7-day week, which is based on God's creation story, which makes no sense at all, especially not in modern science understandings, they worshipped strange creatures like the half man, half lion sphinx. The tombs of the pharaohs and the hieroglyphic writings of ancient Egypt reveal many of the unusual customs observed by these ancient people. The Israelites, as slaves of the Egyptians, were not permitted to worship the one true God. In time, they lost much of the knowledge they had of him. And then, Moses busts them out. And so then God can get them back on track. Okay, here we go. The Sabbath, a special sign between God and his people. The nation of Israel was to become God's nation. All right, so this is we're the special
Mm-hmm.
ones.
Yay!
Yeah, I think he just befuddles everybody with enough words and stories and pointing this direction and this connects to this over here. So they are just like, it's so confusing. And he told me I'm dumb, so I can't figure it out. So he's so right. I'll just do what he says because otherwise I'll get deaded with fire. Life and Nehemiah had to correct people who were breaking the Sabbath yet again. I mean, geez, those Israelites just couldn't keep their shit together. Like, why did God even pick them as his favorites anyway? I don't get it.
Right.
Because of Abraham, because Abraham just magically understood all the rules and followed them
Mm-hmm.
perfectly.
All right. So this little section, Christ kept the Sabbath. By the time Christ was born, most of the world from India to the Atlantic Ocean and from England to the Sahara Desert had been brought under the rule of the Roman Empire.
Ooh,
The
Roman Empire! Roman
Yep.
Empire! Roman Empire!
Bust a nut! The Romans generally allowed the nations they conquered to continue their own religious worship. Thus, the Jews in Christ's day were free to observe the Sabbath and the holy days. The New Testament shows that Christ kept the Sabbath throughout his life. As we have already learned, he set an example for all of us to follow. If he had
Oh.
wanted to set an example for keeping Sunday, he certainly could have. But he kept the Sabbath perfectly every week, setting an example for us to do the same. Come on, be like Jesus.
That's the whole
Very
thing.
important at this one particular day. Christ showed us that the Sabbath should not be a burden, as the religious leaders had made it. Time after time, the Pharisees tried to trap Jesus in alleged violations of their strict rules regarding the Sabbath.
Time after time.
On one occasion, Jesus and his disciples walked through a field on the Sabbath day, and the disciples began to pluck and eat some of the heads of grain. God's law stated nothing about this being unlawful. This was one of the don'ts added by the religious leaders. To the Pharisees, plucking a few heads of grain on the Sabbath, even if one was hungry, was work. Therefore, they determined it was unlawful. What the fuck? Yeah, we could go on forever about what would have been considered lawful or unlawful when it came to work. I mean, when you're taking a massive shit, that's work. You're straining your body.
It's a holy shit, Nancy.
Dark matter.
I mean, doesn't it just show though that here the Pharisees had all these extra rules and they got really crazy with it, and even
Mhm.
modern people who are super orthodox in their Judaism, there's one scripture in there about not cooking a lamb in its mother's milk.
Mhm.
And so some wealthy people have entirely separate kitchens for cooking meat and milk things. Like, what?
But
Yeah.
you ever notice that, in a lot of different aspects of life, some people are like, oh, I want to be the best at following this rule. Like you take Janice Selby, for example, of Divorcing Religion podcast. She was
Mm.
so excited to find something in the Bible about like head coverings or something along those lines that she thought nobody else knew about in the Bible. And she was so excited, like she didn't even want to tell anyone. She's like, I found it. God's going to think that I'm like special because I found this law that I can follow. It's like the more obedient you are, the happier you are.
And she did that to herself, but like we can clearly see that leaders throughout time or people who set themselves above, like these fucking Pharisees, like they just came up with extra rules just to make sure everyone stayed in line the way they saw fit. Like, ay, 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 this is nothing about collective humanity. This is about control and power over each other by way of insane laws.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is really something.
I did see here there's a section Sabbath kept by the New Testament church. So it seems like the only way he's really trying to say, yes, we still have to do it is just, which, whatever, I guess he can say that, but just saying that, like, Jesus did it and so did the early church. So
Mm-hmm.
nobody ever said to stop. So why did y'all stop?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh, and then he gets into why the Sunday observance had began.
Oh, there you go. Let's read that one. Shall I read it?
Go for it.
Okay. How Sunday observance originated. Observance. I don't think most Christians who go to church on Sunday think of it as an observance. That sounds much too like liturgical for how most people do it. Anyway,
You just
we
go to
have,
have a relationship with Jesus, Patty.
yeah, you got to let
You're
him
there
into
because
your
you want
heart.
to.
And you
Want to
got to
be there.
shout, Daddy Jesus, or Daddy God. Daddy God. You got to shout, Daddy God. You're my Daddy God.
Blech.
Don't punish me, Daddy. We have learned that God set aside the seventh day, the Sabbath, at the end of the creation week to be observed forever. Later, the Sabbath was codified as one of the Ten Commandments during the time of Moses. Christ kept the Sabbath. The apostles and the early New Testament church kept the Sabbath. Why then do many churches today keep Sunday? As we have seen, there is no scriptural basis for doing so. Let's learn when and how these churches began keeping Sunday instead of God's Sabbath. Okay, see, I think I'd heard along the way, and I don't know if this is true or if this is what really people think, but the idea being that they would say that Jesus was raised from the dead on a Sunday, and therefore that somehow made it a holy day.
Mm.
But then it also makes no sense if he was crucified on a Friday, then Friday, Saturday, Sunday is somehow how you're counting the 3 days, which is like late Friday to early Sunday, which isn't actually 3 days. And Armstrong had like entire episodes of The World Tomorrow about that.
But I
Anyway,
mean, wasn't the Julian calendar being used during this time period?
so you're spot on. The Julian calendar officially began on January 1st, 45 BC. It
Mm.
was introduced by Julius Caesar to reform the existing Roman calendar, which had become inaccurate and inconsistent.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I mean, because
So who knows? We could have been following the Sabbath day incorrect this whole time because our calendar was just all kinds of fucked up.
so the Julian calendar was a significant improvement at the time, but had a slight inaccuracy in calculating the length of the solar year, which
Mm.
we can actually tell that like with science now. And that eventually led to the development of the Gregorian calendar in 1582.
Okay, 1582 is when the Gregorian calendar. Wow, that late, huh?
That late.
16th century.
So
Dang.
in theory, then we've like retroactively recalculated or something.
So how long were we using the the Julian calendar for?
No, 16 over 1600 years because it was
Jesus.
BC. Yeah. That damn Roman Empire. Let's see what this booklet says then about Sunday observance. Ooh, I see something about deceiving the woman.
Yeah, he couldn't even use her name, Eve. He said the woman.
Well, because she's
Fucker.
representative of all of us.
Right.
Her sin is our sin, Nancy.
He
That's
did
why
that
we're
on purpose.
Of course he did. That's why we're condemned to pain in childbirth. Wouldn't you think that like Christian women then um shouldn't get epidurals because it's like you're circumventing God's punishment that was due you,
Exactly. That's a very good
right?
point.
Okay, so he makes the connection of the serpent, aka I'm going to pretend that's Satan, deceiving the woman in the Garden of Eden. And then it says, one of Satan's great deceptions has been to deceive many into keeping Sunday as a day of worship in place of God's true Sabbath, the seventh day of the week. But why did Satan choose Sunday, the day of the sun? So it was Satan that chose it, by the way. So that's why. That's the real reason all those non-true Christians keep Sunday. It's because Satan told them to. Okay, his original name in Hebrew meant light bringer. Lucifer was his name in Latin. Lucifer was the shining star of the morning, a bringer of light. Doesn't it make sense that he would want people to worship and honor him on a day he inspired to be named after light? Oh. So because it's Sunday, he's equating that to Lucifer, which isn't actually the name of equated with Satan if you're a scholar. And
Correct.
the light bringer or the morning star thing was actually about Venus. I mean, everybody's just made it what they want over the years.
Exactly.
In earlier lessons, okay, I think this is the last thing I'll read. In earlier lessons, we learned that Nimrod, who lived shortly after the flood, set up a whole system of pagan worship centered around the worship of the sun. Through this man, God's true religion was set aside, and pagan idolatry became the dominant religion on the earth. And no,
Like, pagan is not even a religion. Like, really?
no.
I mean, he's just talking about the mystery faiths, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I will read one more section.
Okay.
Because he gets into Constantine even. Yeah, by the early 300s AD, Constantine became emperor of the Roman Empire. He adopted this false form of Christianity as his religion. Constantine was wrong because me, Herbert W. Armstrong, says so. At this time, there was a controversy as to whether Sunday should replace the Sabbath as a day to worship. To settle the Sabbath versus Sunday controversy, Constantine, who had been a sun worshiper, issued the following decree. On the venerable day of the sun, let the magistrates and people residing in cities rest, and let all workshops be closed. So it was Constantine's, this is saying from some history book, that this was Constantine's mode of harmonizing the discordant religions of the empire under one common institution. And so, of course, this gives Armstrong a way to be like, but they did wrong. They varied from the true idea of the Sabbath. And then he goes on to talk about Sabbath to be kept today and how to observe the Sabbath. God commands us not to do our regular work on the Sabbath day. We must not pursue our own interests and pleasures. So no afternoon delight, guys. Ooh, I think our parents broke that one. Ooh. Hobbies. They would take naps sometimes. I knew what was happening.
Yeah.
Hobbies. No. Special interests, sports, and other recreation are for the first 6 days of the week, not the Sabbath. Since God's days begin at sunset, we should keep God's Sabbath beginning Friday evening at sunset and ending Saturday evening at sunset. I can't even with this. It's a blessing to keep God's Sabbath day holy, the day that reminds us his great plan for mankind. Be sure to always rejoice and delight in God's Sabbath.
And take a look, the Bible memory, there's 6 of them.
I was just gonna say
You're
that.
just
Holy shit. Yeah.
No wonder I did so terrible.
You still get to do the coded message, though, all about remembering the Sabbath day, because you probably feel really cool doing that as a 14, 15-year-old in the 9th grade. So there you go. I mean, he definitely lays out his thinking, and it's cherry-picked and asserting as fuck, but it's all there. Ew. That hurt a lot.
It did. But it was kind of fun to look back on things that we clearly remember from childhood. The images, the drawings. Horrifying, but very interesting.
Yeah, that 2nd grade one, man, that was, whew. Abraham's obedience was definitely hit me the hardest in my memories. To all of you WCGers out there, I really hope this wasn't too traumatizing. I hope that you enjoyed looking back at the nonsense and unpacking it and realizing you should never have been hurt and traumatized by having to do it in the first place.
Unpacking it together. Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. And I'll do one. Woohoo! Yeah!